TikTok is possibly going to be banned in the US. And it actually might be a good thing. Today we're going to talk about it with pop culture commentators Ronse and Tatiana. I'm your host Kenim, and you're watching Brand Video Pro, and let's get into the video. Tatiana, nice to have you.
Oh, thank you for having me back. It's always a pleasure.
Well, this is my other channel, Brand Video Pro, so this is your first time on this channel. TikTok CEO being grilled by Congress yesterday. Well, I don't know when this is coming out, so on Thursday. So they grilled him because basically, they passed a law so that Biden has the control, like, to ban Twitter without going through Congress or going through anything, right? And so they had him come into Congress yesterday from the time we were recording this, and they grilled him for 5 hours. I'm about halfway through that video. Let me know your thoughts. Did you see it? What are your thoughts on some of the things that were being said?
I saw clips of it. I mean, I understand why they're grilling him, but like at the end of the day, I don't think they can do much, can they? It seems like quite a complicated process.
No, they can do a lot. Basically, what's happening here is that the Chinese government, or the Chinese Communist Party, which controls China, right, which controls the government, have this policy with all Chinese-owned companies, which makes them have control over those companies. Those companies are basically an extension of the state. Now, the TikTok parent company is a Chinese company, and it's thriving in China. And so the government has the control to do whatever they want with TikTok in China. And so, well, I think it's called Biding, right? And so here's the thing, right? When it comes to the US, this means that now TikTok has control over about a third of the US population in terms of media propaganda. And that's what's scary to the United States. Because propaganda is the biggest tool that you can use to control a population, right? And so when it comes to the US, it's kind of like, so there's 100 million TikTok users in America.
Yeah, 150 million according to the CEO. That's what he said at the
That's even scarier. that's even worse, right? That did not help his case.
Almost half the population of the whole US.
Yeah, right. So 150 million US population, and they were just going through all the details about the stuff that TikTok gives you power to do. Now, when it comes to other companies like Facebook, like Google, yes, they're tracking you. Yes, they're doing this, all that stuff. But I think the part that doesn't scare, like, I mean, obviously they're trying to put in place laws in America that says those companies cannot have the power to do these things. But at the end of the day, those companies are accountable to the US government. And so there's this, they know that even though what you're doing is terrible, we can still, like, control you and make you abide by US law. But when it comes to TikTok, which is owned by, a Chinese company in China, the headquarters, or it's a different company, but it's owned by Biden or whatever. The problem there is that this company is in US shores, owned by the US, but accountable to the Chinese government. And that means the Chinese government could use it as a tool for spying on Americans, manipulating Americans' division. So there's this, like, conversation around how TikTok has been used. Like in China, when you go on the Chinese TikTok, you see that most of the people on there, they're watching stuff, they're promoting stuff that sort of pushes patriotism, pushes the kids to be, successful. But in America, what is being pushed on TikTok is, just things that causes division, political topics that causes division, pushes propaganda, that pushes drugs, suicide, all sorts of things. And this is what they were really just going through, each one at a time. Everybody brought in every issue, from suicide to drugs to Black Lives Matter to the Hispanic community being targeted, to the white Americans. Everybody attacked him. So that's kind of like the lowdown. So what were your thoughts on sort of like, do you think that TikTok should be banned in America?
So, like, as you're mentioning, and also from what I saw, they basically think and have to prove that TikTok is a national security risk. risk. Sorry, correct?
Right.
So it's something that in theory might be absolutely right, because like you mentioned, it's a Chinese-controlled company. They can push whatever they want, and they're not accountable like Facebook and Google to a US-based company. So in theory, as the common man, we might think it could pose a national security risk. But now the issue is to prove it. So that might be quite difficult to collect the data for it.
The thing is that they don't have to prove anything. I think what we're seeing here is just a PR stunt to expose TikTok to the American population. Because they're going through, because Biden can actually just decide tomorrow that he's going to cancel TikTok in America. He has that power. They gave him that power. But Biden doesn't want to be hated by the American population. So all of what we're seeing right now is just propaganda. It's just showing us, they're just doing the sort of due process. They're doing the due process to show us what TikTok, they're doing the due process to show us what TikTok is. Right?
Yes. And on the other hand, some are arguing that it could go against the First Amendment, which, if I'm not mistaken, is like freedom of expression.
Well, in terms of the First Amendment, like I hear that perspective, but how does banning TikTok go against the First Amendment? How is banning TikTok spoiling or stopping your freedom of expression? It's a tool. It's not the means. It's a tool for your freedom of expression, but it's not your actual freedom of expression that they're banning. You get me?
That's what some people I saw argued to argue that it shouldn't be banned.
So I think I hear that on this, that perspective, and we have to realize that there's a large population of people that had struggled to make it on YouTube. It was hard. Struggled to make it on Instagram. It was hard. TikTok came in, created this like creator middle class, which allows people to blow really quickly and even more than all these other platforms. And so it's created so many financial opportunities for a mass population, a big population of people. And I think what the fear is if TikTok is banned, and don't forget, we're also in the middle of a recession right now, right? Or it's just, so if TikTok is banned, there's going to be millions of jobs that are going to be lost.
Exactly. But according to my understanding, in order for them to fully ban, because this isn't the first time they tried to ban TikTok. If I'm not mistaken, President Trump tried to ban it.
Well, there were talks about it, but he didn't actually do anything. They were just talks about the same issues that we're seeing here. And as we know now, the U.S., there are discussions about a war with China. I don't know if you know, earlier this year, basically the U.S. banned the exportation of their microchips to China, which basically microchips are what are basically the foundation of technology that is used to build most of tech. And banning China from accessing that, the U.S. is trying to limit their technological capacity.
Do you think that the U.S. would potentially ask a U.S. company to buy TikTok?
So here's the dilemma. So yes, part of it is that they're trying to tell TikTok, TikTok is saying that so that they could sort of let the U.S. know that this is a U.S. company, you guys control it. But I think the real issue with tech is when you look at hackers, when you look at the way that tech works, you're not going to know if there are secret tools that are being used to extract information anyway. So even if it's owned by a U.S. company, there's no way the U.S. government and there's no way the U.S. population will know whether the Chinese government still has access to our data. And that's the part that is scary, right?
Absolutely right. I just feel like fully banning it is going to take several months if anything were to happen.
I think it would take several months. But the point is that Biden has the power to. So, Ronse, do you want to chime in, give us your thoughts on the whole conversation around the TikTok ban?
I do. I think that it's an interesting thing that's happening where I think people are flagging the width of xenophobia as far as how harsh they are with this Chinese company versus how they are with Meta and all the other US-owned companies. However, it will be a mistake to overlook the fact that the American companies are not subject to the same kinds of overreach that a Chinese company is. And so, yes, I definitely think people are being a lot harsher than they were with, Mark Zuckerberg, everybody else who's come to Congress. But this is a markedly different situation. A company with is under a different jurisdiction, quite literally. And so if they have all this access to information, who knows what they can do with it.
He said is extremely on point.
Okay.
It's absolutely true.
Yeah, give us your thoughts, Tatiana.
I think that, yeah, like he said, this would be the Chinese effectively collecting data from the American population, and they are not subjected to the same rules and regulations as US-based companies. So yeah, like you mentioned, Google, Facebook were probably not, they were also collecting our data in our way, but at least they're under US jurisdiction. In this case, yeah, I mean, the national risk could potentially be bigger, and that is quite worrying.
So that's the thing. So on one end, when you're watching, the grilling, you kind of think that, wow, are they being, xenophobic? Are they being a little bit racist? Like, the way that they're addressing him, but that's how they address everybody. They're just rude. Like that, honestly, that's if you watch them sitting with grilling Mark Zuckerberg, if you watch them grilling anyone, they are just rude. That's just how they are, right? But I was just like, wow. And then that's the real big issue, because there are serious implications to the Chinese having access to U.S. data and potentially using it in a potential war. They're talking war with Taiwan. They're talking, and then we think about President Xi going to Russia this week, in cahoots with Putin. So these are all issues that are brewing under the surface. And I think a lot of people that are content creators on TikTok or consumers of TikTok are typically like younger or just maybe less aware of the political landscape. And so perhaps that's why they're so easily, they're just thinking about themselves and this is their revenue stream. But ultimately, if the Chinese sends bombs to America, to your location, if they do all these things, your comfort will be compromised.
Absolutely. I mean, globally, you're right. And like you said, the demographic that uses TikTok is quite young, like definitely teenagers more than everybody else, I think. And for them to kind of accept that TikTok will be bad, like you and I were older, we understand, like they wouldn't get it. So I think to make this law pass and to effectively ban TikTok is going to be really, really hard.
It's not there's no difficulty here. Biden has the power to wave a wand and just add it.
It has to go through the Senate and then the House of Representatives, and then it gets to Biden. So that's
so what recently happened, at least maybe Ronse, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but what recently happened about, I want to say 2 weeks or so ago, they gave Biden the power to ban it without any approval from any party, but without having to go through Congress to ban it. So he actually has the power right now to just ban it himself. That's my understanding.
So I'm not familiar with that development, but what I wanted to call out though is that all this is coming on the heels of the spy balloon, right? And so you have a situation where China is suspected of basically invading the American airspace with a spying device. It really kind of makes it heats the conversation up a bit, and that's why we see things happen the way they are. And that's why, yes, I mean, if you want to argue that, okay, the CEO of TikTok was treated more harshly, we could add that context. This is happening just so soon after something that is really unheard of for especially people in our lifetime. And so, yes, you have to consider all these things. And I do think a ban feels very anti-American, as they say, but you have to understand that there's serious world affairs at play. And so I'm not entirely opposed to a ban.
So I just addressed what you said there about the China, the CEO being treated, people are claiming racism or xenophobia. I just brought up earlier how this is how they speak to everybody. They're rude. They're rude to everyone.
I don't doubt that their questioning is always pointed. I've seen the hearings with the other CEOs. I think they just will just a few notches higher with this guy than they normally are, honestly.
Well, Okay, and you know what? One of the things I noticed with him is that he made it a point to keep reinforcing that either TikTok is an American company, he's not Chinese, he's Singaporean, he lived in the UK, so he's a Westerner. But I think it's funny because most Singaporeans are Chinese, so it's almost like he's like, they migrated from China to Singapore, so there's still a connection, with China, but he's really trying to disassociate his connection to the Chinese. But let's remember that he worked as I think he was the CFO or the CISO. He has some big position in the Chinese version of TikTok. But what he's doing here, and they said that he would do this at the beginning of their announcements of but he kept persisting that there was a divide, and he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know what's going on in the Chinese company.
That's really interesting because the TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, is domiciled in China. So it doesn't matter if he's Singaporean or British or Nigerian. The company is Chinese, and so the company is beholden to Chinese laws. And
the shareholders he answers to are going to be ByteDance's shareholders.
So some of the questions that they asked that I thought were really interesting is because, yeah, sure, ByteDance is a Chinese company, but TikTok is an American company. I believe it's American, and I can't remember where else in the world that it's headquartered, but it's not anywhere near China. And he was very clear about that. But I think what's interesting is the lack of... Wow, why did I lose my train of thought?
I think it's all semantics, honestly. It's a Chinese company.
I agree.
It's a Chinese company. Okay. There, I remember. So what he basically said, what the U.S. government was trying to ask is, this technology that you have, right? Does ByteDance have the access, to access Twitter's source code and TikTok's source code and the back end? Do they have that access? Is there any technology that you guys share? And, he was very vague with those questions. He said no a lot, but that's really the thing. So even though they're separate companies, you're still using the same base, which the Chinese government has access to that base. He even offered to keep the technology on U.S. shores, which I don't understand. Maybe I know it was the data to keep it on U.S. shores. But we know in this technological world that we live in, it doesn't matter where the tech is, you can access it from all over the world.
Absolutely.
Right. So I mean, it's a tough one. So I'll just go around to each one of you. What do you think? So we can conclude here. Do you think that TikTok should be banned in America, given all the information that they've released, in the hearing? I'll start with you, Tatiana.
I definitely think that TikTok should be more under U.S. jurisdiction. Maybe not ban it totally because it's so popular and the kids love it and it's big. And I know that the argument for freedom of expression is it's not so solid, but it could maybe work in some way. They should just the Chinese ByteDance should accept to have it be in a certain way under U.S. jurisdiction, but banning it totally, I don't think it'll work.
And then what about you, Ronse?
So similarly, even though I do think the smart play from a security standpoint is to ban, I think it will be just so unpopular that it would cause new problems for the government, politically speaking. So I think they should just make stricter laws, find better privacy laws, the same way Europe has the GDPR. The U.S. needs to have something like that across the country. California actually has a version of the GDPR, but it's only for that state. So when we have stricter laws, maybe companies can't do as much with people's information.
So I think what I will conclude by saying is that I think the ban is very just, and I'm leaning more on that side. But what I would suggest as an in-between is to completely get rid of the existing app and rebuild it on U.S. shores with U.S. security and U.S. systems. That would be the alternative that I would say, to ensure that the Chinese doesn't have access to the technology. It will cost a lot of money, but that's the only solution to me from what I know and what they've revealed in that, and just understanding the tension and the history, or the tension with the US and China, including Russia and all these geopolitical players. I just don't think that TikTok should exist in America the way that it does now. And this is coming from someone that has gotten millions of views on TikTok, you know. So, but I say all that to say that all the creators who are upset and scared, you know, I say this time and time again, don't keep all your eggs in one basket. There's no reason why you should have been making content only on TikTok. Like, you should be posting everywhere. So, and there's an alternative. We have, you know, very strong alternatives that serve the same exact needs. Like, there's no reason that the US should even allow, like, you're not going to miss anything is what I'm saying. But unfortunately, if you didn't take the opportunity, take it now to start building your socials across other social media platforms. And that's just my take.
Get on Instagram Reels, everyone.
Instagram, YouTube, like Twitter, like what else do you need? Maybe get Elon Musk to reopen Vine and turn that into the new TikTok. This is what I see. Well, I hope you liked that. Let me know your thoughts. Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all the above. I'm your host, Kenim, and you're watching Brand Video Pro. And guys, make sure you check out my new app, Ray the AI. Check her out on Instagram, on Facebook, and on WhatsApp at RAETHEAI. I'll see you in the next one. A peace.